What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of The Block is Hot. Today we're going to be going over narratives or stories that revolve around a specific NFT project that can have a huge impact on its long-term relevancy and just overall how well it does. Now, just a warning, guys, I am going to get pretty deep here. I've been having so many different deep thoughts, just all the time. Like, if you really knew me and like hung out with me, like my brain is always nonstop. Like it's blah, 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 blah. And it's like all these crazy thoughts all the time. And like sometimes I just like want to get it out, but I feel like sometimes like in videos, it's kind of hard to do that. But in this situation, narratives actually play a pretty good part in some of the thoughts I've been having recently. So I figured why not just throw that in here. So good luck, guys. So what exactly do I mean by narratives, and how is this going to help in your investing career, or hopefully help? Well, think about it this way, guys. Every single project, or every single thing you invest in, or even every single person you talk to, has some sort of narrative that your brain comes up with. And those narratives can become extremely strong and have a lot of relevance in the money world. So for example, CryptoPunks is the largest NFT project ever made in history as of right now. They have had over 852,000 Ethereum worth of volume. The floor is over $180,000. And if you ask people about CryptoPunks, most of the time they'll tell you the narrative, the story. Hey, it was the first PFP project. There were 10,000 of these. They were, when they first started, they were free. And now it's the largest project. It's an OG project, and people buy it because it's the first of its kind. That is the narrative for CryptoPunks. What you'll begin to notice, guys, is that we subconsciously come up with narratives for literally everything. So what's the narrative for Bored Ape Yacht Club? Well, it's the biggest ape NFT project. They had their mutants. A lot of famous people have them. They really blew up. They're the second largest project. So now all of a sudden, if you think of like a top tier ape project, what is the narrative? Oh, well, Bored Ape Yacht Club. Same thing with Decentraland. What is the biggest metaverse? We have this whole idea and concept of metaverses. Which project is really going to shine? Well, Decentraland is the biggest project out of all metaverse projects. And their coin by itself is worth like $5 billion, and the amount of Ethereum going into their land is ridiculous. I mean, the floor is $12,000, $13,000 for this, guys, right? So the narrative for that is, this is the biggest metaverse. We can scroll down. Sandbox, another metaverse project. This is kind of like the Minecraft of the metaverse world, right? Like, we put narratives on everything. Doodles. Hey, this is the colorful pastel art design project of Ethereum. And literally that narrative of being the number one to do this has caused a floor of 10 Ethereum, or almost 30,000 US dollars. Now, the crazy thing is, guys, is we can take this message and we can, do it with NFTs. We can do it with basketball players. Like, if I bring up Michael Jordan, what are you thinking of? If I bring up Tom Brady, what are you thinking of? If I bring up someone rich or successful, what are you thinking of? Are you thinking of fancy cars, boats, major houses, vacation homes? Like, if I bring up a cheerleader, what are you thinking of? Are you thinking of stuck up? Are you thinking of popular? Are you thinking of beautiful? Regardless, guys, we like to, as humans, make stories and create these narratives that basically help us compartmentalize information, because there's no way that we can have a ton of different categories for everything. We have to group stuff together. So the whole point here is that we need to look at investments in a similar way and ask ourselves, what could the potential narrative for this project be? Because more people may think the same thing, which is obviously going to increase price. Now, I know a lot of you guys watch me for my CNFT content, so I'm going to tell you guys some of the narratives that I found when it comes to CNFTs. Narrative number one, Pavia. What do you think of when you hear Pavia? Decentraland of Cardano. And maybe you found yourself saying that in your mind before I had mentioned it. What is the narrative for this? Well, it's the largest metaverse project on Cardano, very similar to the largest metaverse project on Ethereum. So maybe if a lot of people come over from Ethereum, they're going to view this as the next Decentraland, but in a much smaller blockchain, and they're going to buy it for that reason. Next thing, Boss Planet. What do you think of when you hear Boss Planet? Well, they're doing a whole Vox style. Who else is doing a Vox style? Sandbox on Ethereum. So we can expect, once again, that if a lot of people move from Ethereum or if a lot of people get into Cardano NFTs, they're going to have this narrative. Oh, that's the sandbox of Cardano, right? Space Buds. What's the narrative for Space Buds? That's the CryptoPunk of Cardano. Why is it the CryptoPunk? Well, it was also the first 10,000 PFP collection on Cardano instead of Ethereum. So people are like, oh, that's the major OG project. So if a lot of people get into the space, the narrative is, hey, this is the big winner. This is the big kahuna, right? Rats DAO. What do you think of Rats DAO? Oh, this is the first major DAO on Cardano. Like I know Mutant DAO had been created, and I know Boss Planet DAO has been created. But this is the first major one that was successful on Cardano. So if people are interested in investing in DAOs, they might see Rats DAO and be like, oh crap, that is the largest project that's a DAO on Cardano. Equinine Horses. What is this? Well, this is the Zed-Run of Cardano. Zed-Run is a very successful Ethereum horse racing and breeding project. Who's to say that one of those won't exist on Cardano? So maybe people will invest in this because they know Zed-Run did well. What do I think of when I see Jarheads? Now, this is a developing narrative, right? So we got to think here. The way you really make a lot of money is by investing in stuff, believing in a certain narrative before a lot of other people believe in it. So for example, what's the narrative that I have personally thought that Jarheads is going to have? They're going to be the Picasso of the NFT world. When you have art museums in the future that are going to showcase NFTs, which are undoubtedly going to start popping up everywhere, what is this going to be in 10 years? Oh, well, this was a project that came out in the first year of Cardano's existence, and they did a very cool Picasso-like style design, and it's very unique. This is a piece of art that a lot of people bought as art and is holding as art. This is the Picasso of the NFT world, especially in Cardano. So that is a narrative that is developing right now, and we're all trying to figure out what the true narrative is. Is what I said going to be the narrative? Well, I believe so. And if that does become the narrative, then these are going to be worth 10,000 ADA, like I think they will one day. Or the narrative that could develop, hey, this was just a huge thing that went crazy for a little bit. Some people made a ton of money, and this is something that's going to die off in a month, right? That could be the narrative for this. What's the narrative for Bright Pals? Well, in my opinion, it's kind of the doodles of Cardano. So once again, if a lot of people come over to Cardano, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is an OG project that has this color pastel look to it, very similar to doodles. Maybe I'll buy some of these because I think they could be the doodles of Cardano. So how can you use this information of narratives to really help you become a better investor? Well, guys, the answer is simple. You need to figure out what narratives there are already, and you, more importantly, have to figure out how to identify new narratives that will occur. Because if you're able to basically get into these different projects or different investments now, before these narratives are created, then in the future, as this whole industry expands and grows, you will hopefully make a lot more money because your project didn't die because the narrative was so strong. I know that Space Buds are not going to go anywhere because the narrative of them being the first 10,000 PFP project on Cardano is such a strong narrative that it's not going to go anywhere. I know that at least right now, the narrative for Pavia is so strong as being the biggest metaverse project on Cardano. So I would think in 5, 10, 15 years that that's still going to be the case. Or at least it's going to be around by then just because they've already built up this narrative. So we constantly have to be thinking about these different narratives. If I'm looking at these different projects that have been constantly coming out, one of the major things I'm thinking is there a narrative to this? Is there a connection to other narratives? What are other people going to think when they see this? The more people that will agree on a narrative or believe in the same narrative, the more people that are going to be buying that for that narrative, and then in turn, the price will go up and you'll make money from your investment. So to basically sum up everything that I was trying to say here before I go into this deep conversation I'm about to have with you guys is find narratives and try to predict narratives because narratives stick. Stories stick. People will subconsciously stick to different stories and narratives without realizing it. And if you're able to get into projects that are in a developing narrative and you are able to guess the narrative right, or if you're able to invest in different things that already have strong narratives, then you're much more likely to make money in the long term, just because more people will eventually come in and read that narrative and believe in that narrative, because the majority of people already do, and then they're going to buy it, and then you make money. Now that I got all that out of the way, I want to get pretty deep here because I just want to share my thoughts on a mic and see if anybody can relate to me when it comes to this sort of thing. I really thought recently, I just went into a deep dive and I was like, what am I doing with my life? Right? Because we all have a ton of time that we can dedicate to different things. Like, you could be in the military, you could be a volunteer, you could be a doctor, you could start a business, you could literally do anything. Like, the world is an open opportunity. And if you've been wanting to do something and haven't because of self-doubt or whatever the case is, just go ahead and do it, man, because life is really short. We don't have time to be thinking about things so much. Like, I thought so long about making this YouTube channel, and it took me just slapping myself in the face 15 times for me to actually pick up a mic and get on here and put myself out here. But the main thing here, guys, is that we all have different things that we can be doing. And right now, when I looked at my life, I'm like, oh my gosh, the majority of my life right now is looking at these different JPEGs. If you really break this down, is looking at different JPEGs and different crypto assets and different projects and asking myself, are more people going to buy this shit in the future? I mean, that's really what you ask yourself. And like, at the end of the day, guys, we might have different decisions when it comes to making an investment decision, but it all comes down to the same simple fact. Do we think that this is going to be worth more in the future based on what they're delivering, based on their team, their utility, their art, whatever the case is, whatever the project is? Do we think more people in the future are going to think the same way as us now? And if they do, and we're super early, then that means a lot of people are going to come after us, not come after us individually, but buy stuff after us. And that's how we ultimately will make a profit. So for example, this goes for anything. This could go for Tesla stock, right? Like, what if you were one of the first people that invested in Tesla? You'd be making a ton of money right now. Well, when you made your decision to invest in Tesla, you were maybe like, oh, wow, I like this Elon Musk guy. I like the idea. I'm willing to take a gamble on this. And then over time, the reason you were able to make a lot of money was because other people bought into the idea. And it wasn't just buying into the idea of buying the stock. It was buying into the idea of the company, of the product, of the utility, of the vision, of the mission, of helping the world, right? Like, everyone bought into this. So your whole thing as an investor when you got in early was like, okay, do I think all of these things put together is going to create a narrative that is going to cause more people to buy this in the future? What was the narrative of Tesla? Hey, we have these super prestigious cars that were hard to get your hands on. We have a brilliant CEO that's running things, that's always making memes. We have a car that you can really show off to your friends. You can help the environment, and we're going to do all these big, crazy things in the future. There's going to be fuel economy. There's going to be, karaoke in your Tesla, whatever the case is. People bought into that vision. People bought into that thought process. And the people that first bought into that thought process ended up making the most money because they got in before everyone else. So I kind of want to do an example here of a piece of paper. It's always so weird when everything is switched, mirrored. But let's say here, guys, this is the very start. And this was when Bitcoin first came out. And I actually want to do it over here for you guys, because it makes more sense to be on this side. But regardless, this is when Bitcoin came out in 2009. So if you invested in Bitcoin in 2009, that was like investing in Tesla right away. And whoever invested in Bitcoin at the time thought that their technical ability or their skills or their analysis or their belief or the overall mission of Bitcoin was an idea that would be more mainstream in the future. They really thought that more people would get involved in the future. So then they were here. And then as time goes on, crypto is going to develop, these different assets are going to develop, houses on the beach are going to develop, houses in the mountains are going to develop, places that people think, oh, that's a desirable thing. And basically over time, more and more people buy into it, and more and more people buy into it, and more and people buy into it. So for you to win in any investment at the end of the day is by using your knowledge or your utility or your vision or whatever the case is, and make sure that you're investing as close to this side of the paper as possible and not on this side. Because as soon as you get to this side, then you're in the danger zone where you might not have that many more people that buy it after you. So the whole key to winning in the investment world, which is like what I kind of realized, is being really good at knowing what other humans are going to do in the future. That's it. That's what we're doing at the end of the day. And we can look at all these different crypto projects, and we can look at all these different companies, and we can do all this crap. But at the end of the day, we're literally thinking to ourselves, what is a narrative? See, I told you I'd tie it in. What is a narrative that more people in the future are going to believe? Because if we can find those narratives while they're still at the beginning of this piece of paper, then we have a long ways to go when it comes to making a profit. That is the big thing. Identifying those narratives. And that's why I'm so interested in Cardano NFTs, because I feel like the narrative of being an ecosystem that's not on Ethereum, that's way cheaper, that's one of the top blockchains, that has an amazing community where all of these big investors are starting to get into. I believe that narrative is so strong that I think a lot more people are going to invest in this in the future as volume increases, as more people start to be educated on this, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why I think crypto as a whole is going to go way higher, because once people start knowing about the narratives and the utilities and the different promises and applications that these cryptos can have in the future, then there's going to be a lot more adoption. A lot more people are going to get into it, especially when people actually know how to get into this stuff. So it's mad interesting, guys. And my whole thing is I'm like, okay, why do I care about this? Right? Like, why do I care about investing and making money? And this is like a whole other topic that I could literally go on for hours. But I think ultimately for me personally is like, I want to make money not for material things or cars or houses or shirts that aren't plain and white tees. The reason I want to make money is the impact that I can have on the world with the money I make. So I'm hoping that I can help educate other people. I'm hoping that eventually I can be a mentor for other people. I'm hoping that I can tell my parents they never have to work another day in their life. I'm hoping that I can help out friends that are having a hard time. I hope that I can help out different people in the Discord that have believed in me since the beginning of this stage of my life and have watched to see where I go in the future. I'm hoping that I can help countries that don't have the same level of opportunities and help people, learn across the world, and really, I just want to help other people. So it's just mad interesting, man. And I know I'm like jumping into a lot of conversations here, but it's like interesting because it's like money, in a sense, like is the biggest controlling factor of the world. And so many people can and cannot do what they want because of money. Overall, this is mad interesting, and I had like another 15 minutes of talking here. I'm like, this is going to be an hour and a half video, so I'm going to keep it short for this one, but I might make a video later on that kind of dives more deep into my mindset about things, because I think it's like something that really isn't talked about too much. But regardless, guys, I am going to keep the whole point of all this, the whole point of this whole video. We're getting to it. I told you that this was going to be a ride at the beginning. I knew it was going to be. The whole point of all this, people like narratives, people like stories. If you can figure out a narrative or a story before a lot of other people do, then you're ultimately going to make a lot of money, because you were able to figure out a story that a lot of other people would believe in or invest in. And then ultimately you're going to make money from that. And then however you want to spend that money is up to you. Whatever your passion for that money is up to you. I might have a lot of different passions and purposes for making money than other people. But, at the end of the day, man, I think that this is an incredible opportunity here. And I think that's why I'm more interested in this space than anything, because I know that I could go out and be a doctor and really help a lot of people. But I also know that, or I could go to Africa and I could build some wells manually and put some wells together. But I ultimately think that the thing that makes most sense for me as far as like worldwide impact would be to be making as much money as possible. To make as much money as possible means to get into the biggest opportunities as possible. And then once I have that money, then I can make whatever is currently impossible possible for me. So instead of building one well with my hands, maybe I can fund 5,000 new wells, right? So that's kind of like the whole thing that's the whole thing. That is literally the whole thing. Regardless of what you guys care about, find narratives before other people do, and you're going to make a lot of money in the long run. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I hope everyone here has an awesome day.